Here we are today with Rob Frank. I mentioned him in a video a couple of weeks ago at the Pendleton Leather Show. He built this saddle here for me, and he had that up there in the competition. And so anyway, that was what gave me the idea. We should probably do an interview with him since he's here in Burns, Oregon, just a few miles down the road from me. And here we are. This is Rob Frank of Weeping Heart Saddles. Do you have a website as well as your Facebook, or just Facebook?
I have a website, weepingheartcustomsaddles.com, and Facebook is Weeping Heart Saddles, and there's an Instagram as well.
Okay, so quick search, should be able to track him down and see some of his work. Really cool stuff. How long have you been building saddles?
For 7 to 8 years.
7 to 8 years. So what got you into building saddles?
I was a school teacher, and I decided I wanted to learn the cowboy arts. So I left teaching and went to go learn those. And I had a Hartman saddle, was my first cowboy saddle that I bought. And my wife was videoing me the first time I roped in town and made the comment that my butt looked big in my saddle. And so I started saving money for a Tips. I still think Tips saddles are some of the best saddles out there. And I had the money for a deposit, and she told me she was pregnant with our first kid, and I thought now's probably not the time to spend $4,500 on a saddle. And then I left that ranch and left cowboying. We had a kid on the way. Childcare is hard to round up in Harney County, and so I decided I would build myself a saddle, and I just started tearing saddles apart and ordered an instructional video that was inexpensive, and you get what you pay for. I learned a lot from tearing other saddles apart and built that first saddle, and I thought, this is something I can do while I raise kids as well.
That's pretty awesome. So do you know how many saddles you've built?
55.
55.
55 and 2/3.
55 and 2/3. Good deal. So when did you start feeling comfortable? What kind of numbers range as far as building saddles, or do you feel comfortable now?
I feel comfortable, but there's always room for improvement. And now it's really focusing on finish work and the little subtle things that make saddles better. And most of it, I feel like for me now, is aesthetic stuff. But the irony is I felt comfortable early on and thought my stuff was really good. And I'm glad I started going to shows like the Pendleton Leather Show, because having a critique from judges that really are good kind of took me down a peg or two. And the first show I went to, I took my 6th saddle, I think it was, and I was so proud of it. And when I got there and saw the other saddles, I realized how much I had to learn. And then Conley Walker invited me to come over, and I spent 2 days with him. And after that is when I started feeling more and more comfortable. When I took the stuff that he taught me and incorporated it into my build, I felt more comfortable.
Awesome. So what's your favorite thing to build? Would it be a plain rough out, swell fork, slick fork? You build a lot of slick forks because this is the country we're in.
It's definitely not a swell fork.
Okay, perfect. Using plain saddle, fancy floral, what is your ideal saddle order?
Definitely a slick fork. I like the Wades quite a bit. When I started building, all I wanted to build was rough outs. I didn't have any carving experience. And when I spent those 2 days with Conley Walker, he said, when you start carving saddles, you'll want to carve saddles. And I thought he was full of it, but I knew I'd have to carve one eventually. And after my first carved saddle, I find that I enjoy that quite a bit. If I am behind in my schedule, it makes it a little more hectic, but I do enjoy designing and carving a saddle. I would say I like that the best.
Awesome. So where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? So you're 7 to 8 years in. What does an average day for Rob Frank look like? Shop life, cowboy life. Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself?
In 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
In 5 years.
We'll go with
5
5 years.
In 5 years, I would like to have my saddles even finer than they are now. I'd like for my carving to progress quite a bit, but I would like to spend less time in the shop. Once my kids are in school, I plan to start day working like I did before we had 3 kids. And so hopefully that'll take a quarter to a half time, and then the saddles will be the rest. And hopefully, right now I'm 2.5 years out, but hopefully by then I'll have a easier schedule so that I can really take my time. And for example, if I'm carving a saddle, I can really take the time to try to finesse some of the art, because I don't feel like I'm artistic. I'm scientific. If I showed you how I build, everything is very scientific. I don't consider myself to have an artistic eye, but I would like to develop one.
Well, from my experience with floral carving and just the little I know hanging out in your shop and your science about your rig and plates and how you go about things, I feel the same way about floral design. I don't feel like I got to get inspired to come up with this great design. It's just a matter of plugging in things that fit. And so Science Mind will probably work quite well with that. And your carving is awesome. You do some really unique stuff that it's unique to you, and it definitely doesn't need that much improvement.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
I don't know if that's a compliment or
It's
that much.
It's unique because I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like if I can run with that, because a lot of people that went and worked with some of the masters, it's very evident because their carving looks a lot like the person they worked with. And I like that mine is different. I would just like to have it be a little finer than it is now.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. I mean, it's just, you have some definite ideas that they haven't been done over and over and over and over and over by generations of saddle builders, and it's awesome. It looks good, and I look forward to seeing that progress. It's kind of funny how I got to order this saddle. I had a student that had come to my shop, and he was telling me about this saddle that he was going to order, and it was from a production company, and he was saying for $3,500 he could get a full floral. And I was like, really, you should go see my buddy Rob, and for $3,500 you might not get a full floral, but you'd get a wicked saddle that you can ride all day long. It's not going to sore either of you. And so we came out, and he's like, well, I don't know, I'd really like to have flowers on it. And at that time I was like, seriously, you know, his price is going to go up. You know, $3,000 for a really nice custom built saddle is nothing. And, you know, for $3,500 you might get, you know, a little bit of splash of, you know, fancy work on it. And I took him to our other buddy, Pat Holliker. He actually did the conchos on this. This is his cast line. And tried getting Pat to convince Garrett to get a saddle from Rob. And in the process, I convinced myself. I said, man, I should get one before he raises his prices. And so I asked if he'd build me a saddle. And anyway, you know, it's one of those deals. The quality of your saddle is possibly more important than the quality of your horse you ride, because if you have a really nice horse and a really junky saddle and you sore that really nice horse, he won't be nice for very long. So anyway, I'm honored to have this saddle and ride it. I'm pretty darn excited about it, and I can't wait to tell people when they ask, oh, did you build that saddle? Heck no, Rob Frank did. You should give him a call.
I'll be excited for you to have it. I always joke and tell people they can cowboy harder out of my saddles, but I think there is some truth to that because they do fit horses well, and that's up to Ben Swanky, the tree maker, for sure. He does a great job. But because they have a comfortable seat, because they fit well and they're tight, you're more comfortable during the day. And when you're more comfortable and in the proper position, I think you do cowboy harder better.
Yep, I'd agree with that. So anywho, thank you for your time and letting us come hang out in your shop. We appreciate it. Thank you for the saddle. I'm pretty stoked to ride it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yep.